recently retired director of the Persto Praesto Youth Camp. This interview has been facilitated by Ms. Jan C. Regis, librarian, one of the Heritage Library Division of Navis. The interview is conducted by Ray Samuel of the National Workers Union. Good morning, Mr. Layne. Thank you for your time and for your consideration in giving us this interview. I'd like to start by you giving us a summary of your professional and educational background.
A pleasant good morning to Ray Samuel. My name is Julien Layne. I am a retired Youth Camp Director too of the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs. I was last based at the Persto Praesto Youth Camp, or Persto Praesto YDAC as it is now called. I have worked in the Youth Division of the Ministry of Sport and Youth Affairs for a period spanning 31 years from December 1986 to November 2017. During that time, I held positions of Youth Camp Assistant Director, Senior Youth Camp Assistant Director, Youth Camp Director 1, and finally Youth Camp Director 2 at the Persto Praesto Youth Camp. My tertiary education certification comprises of both the certificate and the diploma in youth development work from the Commonwealth Youth Program. Also, I did courses. I did a diploma in human resource management at the Roytech Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. I hold a certificate in human resource management from the Cipriani College of Labor and Social Studies. I completed courses with the Dale Carnegie Management and Leadership Associates Division. I also pursued a professional certificate in events management, which was conducted by the Arthur Lockjack Business Institute under the ambit of the George Washington University, where I completed a professional certificate and graduated a professional certificate in events management. Yes, Mr. Samuel.
What was your entry to the youth camp? How did you end up working in the youth camp?
Well, during the period 1984 to 86, I was employed as a social welfare advisor with the Ministry of Social Development. Prior to that, I always did some volunteer youth work with the Methodist Boys Brigade and other youth organizations. Having worked at the Ministry of Social Development as a social welfare advisor, which I did work with a lot of elderly and young people, giving grants and seeing about pensions and other amenities, I decided to graduate to youth work, which was always one of my passions, and I applied and was transferred to the Ministry of Sport, Culture and Youth Affairs at that point in time to be employed as a Youth Camp Assistant Director. I started my employment at the Chaguaramas Youth Camp in December 1986, actually the said day which the NAR government won election. That is, I think December, either the 12th or the 15th, 1986. Thereafter, I was transferred to the Persto Praesto Youth Camp. I was relocated to the Chatham Youth Camp, back to Chaguaramas Youth Camp, and finally, my final charter of the last 15 to 20 years at the Persto Praesto Youth Camp, where I retired in November 2017, approximately a year and a half ago.
When the youth camp program began, what was its objectives?
The first youth camp was opened in December the 31st, 1964. That was the Persto Praesto Youth Camp. It was opened formally by the Father of the Nation, the Honorable Dr. Eric Eustace Williams. And the main objective of the camp was to prepare and empower youths, both unemployed and underemployed youths, for responsible citizenship and by exposing them to formal and informal structured curricula over a specified period of time. That would be a 2-year period of time. So basically it was to handle the unemployment in the rural and urban areas at that point in time, 1964, December 1964.
What was the curriculum like?
Basically, curriculum started off as strictly agriculture curriculum, with certain part-time activities of electrical, auto mechanic, and construction carpentry. They were like the sub-courses. But the main course was an agriculture camp. Also, the first batch of campers, as they were called at that point, there were 50 pioneers, and they actually built the camp. So when the camp was opened in 1964, they were housed under tents loaned to them by the army, the regiment. They were under the guidance of one former deceased Mr. Ray Watkins, who was one of the scout commissioners at that point in time. Right, so he opened the camp, and thereafter, the guys who were the pioneers, they assisted in constructing wooden buildings. I was told that the buildings were used material from the former Augustus Long Hospital at San Fernando, and they guided by Army personnel and one or two construction technicians, built some crude buildings out of wood at that point where they were housed.
Where were some of these camps? In fact, maybe you could identify all the camps that we...
Okay, the first camp which was open was the Persto Praesto Youth Camp, which is still based at the La Cuesa Road off Arena Road, Freeport. That was in 1964. The second camp that was open was the Mount St. George Youth Camp in Tobago, which was opened in 1966. I don't have the exact date. Another camp which was opened in 1966 was the Chatham Youth Camp, which is at Chatham, on the way to Cedars, Iowa Forest, Point 14. The fourth camp which was opened was the Chagamass Youth Camp at the Chagamass Peninsula on the road to Macquarie, which was opened in 1968. All those first four camps were strictly male camps. And in 1976, the El Dorado Youth Camp, which was for girls, was opened at Tunapuna, St. Cecilia Street, Tunapuna.
Well, I was about to ask if there were any co-ed camps.
No, there were no co-ed camps. There were single gender camps. All camps were single gender.
What intercamp activities were there and how were they organized?
There were many intercamp activities. There were intercamp calypso competition, sporting activities, cultural activities. There were exchange visits. The major activities like the calypso competition, the cultural activities, what would have took place is that committees would have been formed with ministry personnel and also senior personnel from each of the camps, and they would have come together and put the program for the events.
Where were graduates most likely to find employment?
Well, there are to date approximately 17,000 graduates of the camp, and I even worked with some written documents here because there are so lots of the graduates were found employment in the military. That is, some as senior Coast Guard and Defense Force personnel, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service. Some were senior technicians at TNTEC and also at WASA and other oil field industries. Others became self-employed tradesmen such as electricians, freelance electricians, masons, plumbers, auto mechanics, joiners. Some went on to become building contractors. Others who were inclined to the mostly academic side of it went on to become trade instructors at technical schools, some trade instructors at the said youth camps. Those who were culturally inclined some became accomplished professional musicians. There are quite a few soca artists out here, namely Benjai, Rodney Libla, Blacks, Dexter Stewart, Oscar B., Oscar Benjamin, who were former campers. Some became professional cooks in various hotels and industries, contractors. A few also became radio announcers. Some who in the religious field became pastors, offshore technical workers. Others who continued in academia. Some eventually became university lecturers at foreign universities. Others, youth camp directors, community development officers, best village officers, and many other personnel employed both in the public and private enterprises.
Which administration decided to close the camp?
Well, different camps were closed in different years. For my information, the first camp that was to be closed out of the 5 was the Mount St. George Youth Camp, which was closed in the year 1997. I was told, I do not have to misquote anyone, that came about as a result of the decisions of the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly. I think they wanted back control of the property, and the Ministry of the Central Government relinquished the property in 1997 to the Tobago House of Assembly. So that camp was the first one became closed. Secondly, The Shagamas Youth Camp was closed in the year 2000. It has been bandied about, and it was said that it was due to some coliform in the water, the drinking water. However, my personal view is that it's different, because what I knew when the Shagamas Development Authority came into being, all the lands in the peninsula were vested in the CDA, and I think they started charging a rent for the compound down there, which was in the sum of hundreds of $1,000s. So maybe the ministry was watching at the additional amount they have to put out. So that is my personal view. So that camp was closed in the year 2000. That was the second camp. The third camp that was closed was the El Dorado Girls Camp, which was closed, which had opened in 1976 and was closed in May 2011 under the coalition government, the PP government. It was closed, and a cabinet decision was taken to relocate the building and use the building for a nursing training academy under the Ministry of Science and Tertiary Education. So the camp was closed and the building was renovated. I don't know, it was supposed to be using now for a nurses training academy to train nurses for the Caribbean.
Indication this was coming, was there any type of consultation with the professional leadership and management?
There was consultation, Ray, but although we had input and the senior managers had input in, apparently it was a cabinet and foregone decision.
And you as professional, what was your initial response when you heard this?
Well, being a public servant, you have to be careful how you do things. But I did try to impress upon the graduates and the alumni and some of the parents to lobby, whether through the political parties or the political affiliation, but not much was done. We, as professionals, as the youth camp directors, wrote to the permanent secretary, which was the highest person we could have wrote to. But somehow our concerns were ignored. We had meetings were held, but they went ahead with their cabinet decision to close down the El Dorado Youth Camp and open the Nurses Training Academy.
What was the general response inside and outside the program, in the public domain?
That is in the closing of the camps? Well, a lot of dissatisfaction. You got a lot of disenchanted workers. Workers were transferred. Some were thrown off, off the daily program, the social programs and the family programs, in that sometimes people had to relocate the children because some people would have had their children going to school close to where they work in. So when you move them around, some went to Chatham, some came to Persto Praesto, you dislocated a lot of the personnel and the employees who became disenchanted.
Well, I'm thinking about the public who would have known and appreciate the value of the camp. Parents, ex-campus, what was the feedback generally when we began?
Well, the feedback was people were very uncomfortable, they were unhappy, but I don't think they got together in any meaningful way to make any major protests. They may have wrote to the MPs or the parliamentary representatives, but however, it was closed. And one topic that came out, one school of thought, which they started to tell the people who were disgruntled, they were bandying about a rumor that they're going to reopen the camp at some other location. They had one or two personnel looking for some old colony buildings and some other school buildings, but however, to date, it has not come to any fruition.
In your view, what has been the major social impact of the closure of the camps?
Well, in my personal view, we got a lot of social and deviant behavior exacerbated from a lot of young ladies. My personal view, I have been personally chastised by one or two personnel who know I am a senior person at the camps, in that, some of the girls, all their ambitions were frustrated and thrown apart. Some people even told me some of the daughters got pregnant, and if they were at the camp, at least they would be learning something. And a lot of dissatisfaction and a lot of, people espousing a lot of dissatisfaction to me and other senior personnel, and even to some of the politicians at large. Yeah.
2 camps remain open. How are they managing?
Well, 2 camps remain open. The Persto Praesto and the Chatham. I have to be very careful in what I'm saying, because at the moment the Persto Praesto, the boys are off center. They came in, I think, just before I left in 2017, some point in time in 2017. I don't remember the exact date. And I departed, another personnel came. But there, I understand, sorry, excuse, I heard the minister speaking at a community meeting with the Prime Minister, the meeting people, and she was saying that there are some HR issues, but to the grapevine, I understand there are some health and safety issues, which has forced them to send the boys home sometime in the last quarter of 2018. So at the moment, the boys are off camp, and I think they are putting certain things in place. I don't know if they will bring back the boys in camp because I have since retired and I'm not there on a daily basis.
Would you favor reintroduction of the program?
Of course, definitely. The camps are a very meaningful and indispensable institution in the Trinidad and Tobago and also in the region. And in closing down, you find you might get much more deviant behavior. You may have more people that go to prison. A lot of guys who are dropped out of the camp or who were, forced out or went out due to discipline. Sometimes you read it in the newspaper where they end up either dying or they end up in a lot of problems with the law. So I think it is very foolhardy to close down the camps. And, a lot of people, especially people from the country areas, people from the areas of Moruga, Toko, Blanchishes, Rampanalgas, those sort of areas, Matlat, Separia, Pinal, Erin, a lot of these youths down there still request, attendance to be attended at the camps, at the centers.
What changes is off the top of your head you would suggest to the program?
Well, not to stray from your question, I think at the moment, or within the last 3 to 4 months, there was some interministerial committee reviewing the operations and the working of the camps and the programs. I don't know what they have come up with their final report, but basically I think what they should do is upgrade some of the programs, pump some more money into the camps, because there are a lot of programs which we do now to date, which in the past, a young fellow would have wanted to do tailoring, but now we have dress design, we have different things. So what I think they need to do is re-engineer the curricula to add different things like steel pan tuning, graphic design, leather craft, a lot of modern day and shorter courses. And also with the period of time the young men at the centers, they could have them multi-skill and doing more than one courses. So a guy could do maybe a vocational training, he could also do some leather craft, he could do studio work, he could do barbering. In that when he depart and graduate, he will have more availability of employment.
People like you, I happen to know, have spent some time in the system through a sports program. There are quite a few people, retired, semi-active, who have a vast body of knowledge about the camp. But again, I know that because they go back number here. They still identify strongly with the program. Wouldn't you see a need for them to be involved in any consultative process?
Yes, Ray, there's definitely a need for retired personnel and people with a lot of institutional memory to be involved in the consultation process. But what you find happening is that sometimes the politicians and the academics, I have to say, because one of the problems at the camps is that a lot of people who are managing now are basically academics. And they don't have the commitment, they don't have the institutional knowledge, they don't know. A camp is a little animal by itself. Sometimes I think at the moment people at the senior head office want to manage the camps in the community. And a camp is supposed to be tied into the community. Just traveling, coming up this morning, going through my head with what used to happen at the camp. You are from the Point 14 area originally. And in the past, sometime at the Chatham camp, if the deep freeze broke down, they could have maybe called, in the meantime when it was down, they could have called Mr. Carl Chan, Lennox Chan, and asked him, he was a famous supplier, to store his things. So it was a sort of community something. People, when they had sports, a lot of community involvement was in the sports, but now you find everything centralized in Port of Spain at the head offices, and a lot of the personnel who are academically qualified, but maybe, I don't want to say not they committed, but they don't have the knowledge and the understanding of the whole history of the camps. They are on it, so a lot is left out. There's a big disconnect. And I think that is one of the basic problems. They need more involvement of past and retired graduates and also personnel like professionals like the camp directors. There's also an alumni association, and they too can also give a lot of support and guidance to the camps presently.
Mr. Layne, this has been a very informative and not only informative, very instructive interview. Anything you would like to add in closing?
Well, I'm very thankful to you and Alice to allow me the opportunity to, impart some of the information I have, and I will always be there to, add to youth work. At the moment, I'm retired, so I do a lot of informal, voluntary youth and social work, A lot of the graduates still check with me and come to me and connect with me. I assist them in helping get them employment and different contacts. So as I say, I'm very grateful, and I hope that if this information is shared, that the powers that be take the information, and maybe if they need my assistance and assistance of other personnel I could source to reopen the camps fully and to get them fully functional, re-engineer them, get new programs, and get them up and running. Proper recruitment, proper management, localized. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julien Layne.
All right, have a blessed day to you, Mr. Ray.